The door creaked open as I stepped into our house, balancing a bag of prenatal vitamins in one hand and my purse in the other. My heart was full. I had just come back from my latest checkup. The doctor assured me everything was progressing beautifully. Evan and I were finally going to have the baby we'd dreamed of. But my world shattered in a heartbeat. I heard them before I saw them, low laughter and murmured voices coming from the living room. A strange, sultry giggle I didn't recognize floated toward me. My steps quickened, each one echoing with dread. And there they were. Evan, my husband of 6 years, sat on the couch, his arm casually draped around Stacy, his business partner. Her red lipstick was smudged, her blouse unbuttoned just enough to suggest intimacy. They froze when they saw me. Stacy was the first to recover. She sat up straighter, brushing her long, perfect blonde hair back as if I were the intruder. Her blue eyes glittered with malice. "Oh, look, the housewife's back," she sneered, her voice dripping with condescension. "You know, it's almost a shame you're here. Evan and I were having such a good time. I could barely breathe." My stomach churned as I dropped the bag and stared at my husband. "Evan," I whispered, pleading. "What is this?" He said nothing, his face a mask of guilt and shame. Stacy laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "Come on, sweetheart. Don't act so surprised. A man like Evan deserves someone who can actually keep up with him. Someone young, ambitious, and fun." Her eyes flicked to my stomach with thinly veiled disgust. "Not someone waddling around like a duck, popping out babies." Her words hit like a slap. My mind spun. We'd known each other since we were 10. We'd built our lives together. Gone to the same schools, started a company from nothing, shared dreams and struggles. And now this. I turned to Evan, waiting for him to defend me, to deny it, to do anything. But he didn't. Instead he stood, grabbed Stacy's hand and mumbled we should go. My voice trembled with fury and heartbreak. "Evan." But he didn't look back. That night I sat in our empty bedroom, tears streaming down my face as memories flooded my mind. Evan and I laughing in college over cheap takeout. His proposal under a canopy of stars. The day I told him I was pregnant and he'd kissed me so fiercely I thought my heart might burst. But now all of it felt like a cruel joke. Evan came home 2 days later. His footsteps were tentative as he entered the kitchen, where I sat staring blankly at my untouched cup of tea. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice low. I didn't look up. "Sorry for what, Evan? For cheating? For breaking our family? Or for leaving me to figure it out on my own?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I was confused. Stacy, she reminded me of you. The you I fell in love with. That energy, that drive." I laughed bitterly, cutting him off. "You mean the me you begged to give up a career to stay home and support you? That me?" He flinched. "It wasn't like that. I just..." "Stop." My voice was a whisper, but it held all the anger and pain I felt. "I can't do this anymore, Evan." On my birthday, Evan brought home a box of cookies, his feeble attempt to make amends. The gesture felt hollow, but I was hungry and exhausted, so I ate one. Minutes later, my throat began to close. Panic set in as I struggled to breathe. I barely managed to call 911 before everything went dark. When I woke up in the hospital, the doctor gave me the devastating news. I had an allergic reaction and I had lost the baby. My baby. My calls to Evan went unanswered. The next morning, a text from Stacy arrived with a photo of her and Evan in bed, smiling. I knew then it was over. The divorce was swift. Evan hesitated at first but agreed after Stacy announced her pregnancy. I took half the company, a small consolation for the life I'd lost. A month later, Evan and Stacy married. But karma has a way of evening the scales. I fled to Brazil to escape the pain. The vibrant colors, warm sands, and rhythmic samba beats were a balm for my wounded soul. One afternoon as I wandered through a bustling market, I heard a familiar voice. "Fancy meeting you here." I turned to see Mark, Evan's business rival, grinning at me. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes that sparkled with mischief, he was the kind of man who turned heads wherever he went. "Mark," I stammered. "What are you doing here?" "Business," he lied, though I later learned he'd followed me after hearing about my trip. Mark was charming, but more importantly he was kind. He offered to show me around and I accepted. Slowly, day by day, he chipped away at my walls. One evening as we strolled along the beach, Mark paused and turned to me. "You deserve to be loved, truly loved," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Not for what you can give someone, but for who you are." Tears welled in my eyes. For the first time in years I felt seen. Evan reached out months later, broken and begging for another chance. Stacy had lied about everything. Her pregnancy, her intentions, and Evan discovered she'd orchestrated the cookie incident that cost me my child. But it was too late. I had found someone who valued me, who made me laugh, who reminded me of my worth. As I walked hand in hand with Mark along the golden shores of Brazil, I felt hope for the future. A future I would embrace with open arms. The months rolled by and I had almost completely moved on. Brazil, with its lush rainforests, golden beaches, and vibrant culture, was becoming my sanctuary. Mark and I had grown closer, our bond deepening with every shared laugh, every sunset walk, and every quiet moment where he simply listened. One night, as we sat on the veranda of a quaint villa overlooking the ocean, Mark brought up a topic I hadn't expected. "I heard about Evan and Stacy," he said, his tone cautious. My chest tightened slightly at the mention of their names, but I nodded. "What about them?" Mark hesitated, then sighed. "It seems their perfect little union isn't so perfect anymore. The company's in shambles. Evan's losing clients left and right, and Stacy, well, she's proving to be exactly what everyone warned him about." I tilted my head, curious despite myself. "What do you mean?" Mark leaned back, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "She's been siphoning money from the company. Apparently, she had no intention of sticking around. She was using Evan to climb the social ladder. And once she got what she wanted, she started draining him dry." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. I should have felt anger or maybe even pity, but all I felt was a quiet sense of justice. Back home, the unraveling of Evan and Stacy's lives was the talk of the business world. Stacy's financial manipulations came to light during a routine audit, and she fled the country, taking with her what remained of Evan's dwindling assets. But the worst blow for Evan came when Stacy's betrayal hit a personal note. He discovered through a mutual acquaintance that she had been sleeping with one of his senior employees, the same man she'd enlisted to help embezzle funds. Stacy had played Evan like a fiddle, leaving him destitute and humiliated. Evan's once thriving company declared bankruptcy within months, and he was forced to sell off their marital home. Alone and penniless, he tried reaching out to me again, his desperation palpable in his voicemails and texts. "Please, I made a mistake," he begged. "I see it now. Stacy gave me the cookies. I didn't know those cookies have nut oil in it. I would never kill my own child. I should never have let you go. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." I never replied. Stacy didn't escape unscathed either. Her new lover, realizing she was a liability, abandoned her as soon as the embezzlement scandal broke. With nowhere to turn and facing potential legal action, she lived on the run, constantly looking over her shoulder. The glamour she had once flaunted was gone, replaced by desperation and regret. Meanwhile, my life with Mark blossomed. He showed me every day that love could be gentle, kind, and uplifting. On one particularly breathtaking evening, as we stood under a canopy of stars on a secluded beach, he knelt down and took my hand. I don't want to just be the man who helps you heal, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to be the man who helps you build the rest of your life. Will you let me? Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, unable to speak. For the first time in what felt like forever, my heart was full. Not of pain but of hope and love. Evan and Stacy became nothing more than distant memories, reminders of what I had survived and how far I'd come. And as I walked down that beach hand in hand with Mark, I knew I had found not just love but peace.